Musa stood on the edge of the field, his arms crossed tightly across his chest as his eyes followed Kim from a distance. A relay race was happening nearby, but it barely registered in his mind. His focus was on her and the way she seemed to fit so effortlessly into the scene. She was talking to some older form for seniors, her laughter ringing out across the field, and Musa felt his stomach tighten. One was leaning in too close, his hand brushing against her arm in a way that felt too familiar, too comfortable. Musa tried to ignore it, tried to look at something else, but he couldn't tear his gaze away. Every time she smiled, every time she laughed, it felt like the boys were stealing something from him, something he couldn't even name. He tried to tell himself it didn't matter. She was just talking to them. It wasn't anything. It shouldn't bother him. But it did. Musa had watched Kim for a long time. Now he'd been aware of her from a distance. She was always there, part of the event, but never in the spotlight. Last year, she'd barely caught his attention. She was just another face, one of the many in the sea of girls. But this year, everything had changed. She wasn't just another girl. She was the one, and the way she'd blossomed into someone everyone seemed to flock to it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. She was now with a group of girls from her school. One of the girls said something to her that made her laugh again. It was a soft, easy laugh, one that made it clear they shared something he didn't have access to. It was the way she leaned in, the way her eyes sparkled. Everything about her in this moment was open and alive, and Musa hated that. He couldn't be the one to make her laugh like that. The frustration simmered in his chest, tightening around his ribcage. He was used to control, used to being the one people noticed, the one who commanded attention. But with her, it was different. She had the power. It was always her choice, always her moment, to share with whoever she pleased. And right now, she was sharing it with someone else. He could feel the jealousy rising inside him like a slow burn. It was irrational, but he couldn't stop it. Every time a boy leaned in a little too close, or another interrupted with some joke, Musa felt a deeper frustration. She wasn't just talking to them, she was one of them. She belonged there, in that circle, and Musa wasn't sure where he fit anymore. He shifted uneasily, trying to force himself to focus on the race, to pretend like he didn't care. But the scene on the field kept pulling him back. Kim was laughing again, her head tilted back, her eyes alight with something he couldn't touch. The boys were all around her, and even a few others from his class. The group seemed to close in on her, and Musa's sense of helplessness grew. She was never alone. A voice snapped him out of his spiraling thoughts. "Musa, you coming to the after party?" It was Martin, one of his classmates, tapping him on the shoulder. Musa turned, his mind still half on Kim, but his attention pulled toward his classmate. "Yeah, I'll be there," he muttered, barely processing the question. His eyes darted back to Kim, who was now talking animatedly with another boy, once again leaning toward her. "It never stopped. She's always with them, huh?" Musa said before he could stop himself, his voice a little sharper than he intended. Martin gave him a puzzled look. "Who her?" Musa said, pointing towards Kim, his jaw tightening. "She's always with them." Martin shrugged, seemingly unaware of the weight in Musa's voice. "So, she's cool, bro. She talks to everyone." Musa felt the frustration surge again, but he bit back his words. "She's never alone," he said quietly, more to himself than to Martin. There was a long silence as Martin processed the words, his expression unreadable. "Well, what do you expect, man? She's popular. You know how it is." But it didn't help. Nothing helped. Musa's gaze flicked back to Kim. She was still surrounded by the boys, still laughing and enjoying herself, and it felt like something deep inside him was twisting. He couldn't even get close. Every time he tried, another boy stepped in between them. Another voice stole her attention. It was like she was untouchable, a person he could observe but never reach. The thing was, he wasn't used to not being noticed. He had always been in control, always the one who could make an impression. But with her, everything was different. She was always surrounded by someone. There was never an opening. And now, watching her laugh with her new friends, seeing the way they shared some private joke, Musa felt a surge of resentment. He wanted to be the one to make her laugh like that, to be the one to have her attention. But every time he tried to get close, he was shut out. It wasn't fair. He wanted to walk up to her, pull her away from the boys, make her see him rarely see him. But it was impossible. She was always surrounded, always with them. And the worst part, she didn't even notice him standing there. Musa turned away, his body tense with the frustration that had been building all afternoon. He could feel the heat of it creeping into his chest, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He didn't know what to do with it, and so he walked away, pushing through the crowd, trying to shake off the feeling of being left behind. It stayed with him, the jealousy, the frustration, the unanswered longing. It wasn't just about the race, it was about Kim. And for the first time, Musa realized he didn't know how to get her to notice him.